Good evening, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. Wanted to get on tonight and see if I could explain something I think a lot of people are missing, and I kind of just clicked on it myself here not too long ago. And what it is we see in the Bible, it talks about the name and the number of the beast. And in this system here, they have a system that depends upon a name, address, and a number. And it's all starting with the Customs and Border Protection in regards to, say, the birth certificate in the Panama Canal, and that certificate needing to be imported specifically into the United States. So it's all dependent upon the Customs and Border Patrol and their import bonds. So let's talk about import bonds. And as you can see, I just put up in the query section. And you guys notice I use Google a lot. That's fine. I have no problems with security or anything like that. I've been using the same Yahoo Mail for 20 plus years. I have no problem with using Google. The problem with any search engine when you're doing your research, folks, is that when you stop with the first definition and depend upon that. There's a place on Google, and I'm sure it's the same on a lot of sites, search engines, where they have common questions that people will ask of that search engine. And it'll say, what is a customs bond? And so we click on that. A customs bond is a contract between three parties. That means it is a multilateral agreement. Customs, a principal, i.e., an importer, and a surety to ensure that all the duties and fees associated with the rules and regulations of importing or other customs activities are paid to customs by the principal. By the principal. Very important there, people. By the principal. In, say, the specific regards to the driver's license and needing to have a driver license in order to operate a motor vehicle. The motor vehicle is, in fact, an automobile that is manufactured as such by someone that takes upon a name in an industry titled as an automobile industry. Let's make that first and foremost. Now, a lot of these automobile manufacturers happen to be on the same landmass that I was born on, being of the same national origin. When they subject themselves to a multilateral contract between themselves, the United States, and a dealership, I'm not the principal. That transaction has already occurred, and the taxes need to be paid on that. This is what they are transferring through the supposed requirements of registration and certificate of title and insurance and all that. It's all talking about placing you as a surety. When you're not involved in it, that surety is already placed. Comprehend this, people. The surety is already there. In regards to that automobile industry, and we're going to see that when the automotive industry imported it to the United States, they also gave the title to the United States, or actually the state, because it went through the import through the United States and then immediately transported to the state, when in actuality it never went to the United States. The only thing that went to the United States was the contract of the multilateral agreement with the United States and the states to then further transport it to the state as another import, and now being subject to state import taxes, but still under federal acquisitions regulations, still under the customs border protection. That's the original multilateral agreement. We're not party to that. Those taxes have already supposed to have been paid, and they've been supposed to have been paid by the principal, which is the automobile manufacturer who wants to sell it. What's happened is he has given his number in lieu of his name and address as a manufacturer, and the Customs and Border Patrol has created another number on the other side of the ledger, and now they've connected it to the number you were assigned through the Social Security Administration, placing you as the security when you are the end purchaser. They've passed it all along. So then we go down to the next one. It says, how do you get a custom bond? So we just keep on going down that list. We started with what is a custom bond. And we just keep going down this list here, and we look at some of the questions that other people have put forth to the search engines. You can obtain a U.S. Customs and Border Protection bond through a surety licensed by the U.S. Department of the Treasury. Okay, now we've got the Customs and Border Protection and the U.S. Department of U.S. Treasury. Okay? Comprehending this? Please visit the Bureau of the Fiscal Services for a list of sureties. What they're doing at the state level when they transfer that and make you the surety, they don't have it on a fiscal service list. This is why I tell you people, if they're not giving you a proper form with an OMB number of the which is Office of Management and Budget of the Fiscal Services under the Government Accountability Office, then it's a false and deceptive form under the federal code. Again, they're under federal acquisitions regulations in regards to the sureties. That surety has not been, the taxes have not been paid, and they're still operating the surety, and they're getting you to step up as the surety to pay the taxes. Yet, those taxes that you're paying are being paid in Federal Reserve notes. This is Title 26 of the U.S. Code. This is the Assessment Authority of Taxes. This is the tax code itself. The first paragraph says, the secretary, remember we talked about secretary, that's the secret discussion. The secret discussion is authorized and required to make the inquirer's determinations and assessment of all taxes. All taxes, and this is in parentheses so we can take this all out and don't even bother reading that, imposed by this title. This title. No other title, this title. Imposed. Their position, not yours, by this title, or accruing under any former internal revenue law, which have not been duly paid by stamp at the time and in the manner provided by law. Nowhere in any code does it say you pay taxes with Federal Reserve notes. It says which have been duly paid by stamp. Pure and simple. It says, please visit the CBP website for additional bond information. And then you can visit this. It says helpcbp.gov. You can click on that, and it's going to take you to a site. And you can ask these guys all kinds of questions you want. They're going to tell you the way what their opinion says, in hopes that you're going to believe them and pay them some more. And you just go on down and you read all the different things. And you can keep going on with these questions. What is a bond fee for U.S. Customs? The import bond amount is calculated based on the amount of duties and fees associated with the imported goods. If it's not imported, it can't be bonded. You get that, people? The United States can't export until it's been imported into them. And the taxes are due by the exporter, the manufacturer. They didn't pay it. What they did was they gave a number in lieu of the name and address as the debtor that owes the taxes. This is what they're doing all the way through the line. Comprehend, people. When we talk about this shadow, and this is what I'm talking about in this revelation that I just recently came to upon myself. Our person is our shadow. That person has both a name and a number. They're always putting forth the name in all these different styles. But all these styles relate to one number. The original issuing number. The number that you can use in lieu of the name and address, just like everybody else. I'm not the principal. I'm the beneficiary. I'm the end beneficiary. So we have to discern this for ourselves so we can decide whether it's an import, export, or what I've been trying to tell people is entrepot. See, we're not involved in imports and exports if we go directly to the automobile manufacturer and custom order. It no longer has anything to do with custom bonds. It has to do with a custom order. It doesn't even have to do with OID. It has to do with your word as your bond. And you've made a custom order through your word and not anybody else's. You are not importing it for export reasons or resale purposes. You are making an exchange, a trade under international law, privy of any third-party interveners. So let's go back to the very first one that I looked up or saw when I looked up and read that. Now that we've seen some other things, it says a customs import bond is a financial guarantee. That sounds like the surety. That's the guarantee, right? Isn't that what they're using as the guarantee, is the surety? So a customs import bond is a financial guarantee, synonymous, I would believe, as surety. Guarantee. So we see it's a financial surety. Okay? A customs import bond is a financial surety between the insurance surety company issuing the customs bond. Who is the insurance company issuing the customs bond if it's the Customs Border and Protection that issues the number? Who is the importer of the record if it's the Customs and Border Protection that's importing the record? And Customs and Border Protection. Does that not sound like they are the ones that are surety for the principal who has not paid the duties on the exports that they are importing? Per regulations, CBP, Customs and Border Protection, requires all importers to file an Activity Code 1. So if I'm an exporter and the automobile industry is an exporter, who is the importer? Customs and Border Protection. They are saying that per regulation, CBP requires all Customs and Border Protection agents to file an Activity Code 1 import bond in order to clear their entries. Even if the goods are duty-free. Duty-free. Remember, I just spoke of entrepot. 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 What is entrepot? The term entrepot, also called a transshipment port. Historically, shipment being very important here, you'll see, historically referred to a port city, trading post, or warehouse where goods would be imported for storage or trade before re-export, with no additional processing taking place and with no customs duties imposed. No customs duties imposed. Where did I just see they used the word imposed? Anyway, like I said, it's an imposition. So let's look at that Activity Code 1 import bond. The most common type of customs bond, again, they're the Customs and Border Protection Insurance Company, is an Activity Code 1 bond, also referred to as an import bond. Again, if they are the ones importing it, and then the state imports it, and then from there it's imported to a local dealership, and the state nor the United States have either been in physical custody of the import itself, and it was actually and factually transported from the automobile dealer to the dealership, or automobile manufacturer to the automobile dealership. Shipment. Okay? It says it's as an import bond. An import bond is required. An import bond is required on all commercial shipments of goods valued over $2,500 to lawfully enter commerce of the United States. $2,500 in Federal Reserve notes, which is an obligation. A commercial obligation, a financial bond, a financial surety of the United States. Getting it? When we think about customs duties, collection districts. Remember, I told you it's federal acquisition regulations. They are collecting what they are acquisitioning. Ports and officers, rules and forms prescribed by secret discussion. Rules and forms prescribed by secret discussion. That doesn't sound like a law to me. Sounds like they're specifically saying rules in regards to customs duties. So what was that rule in regards to all customs duties and how we pay them? By stamp. By stamp. The Secretary of the Treasury. So now we have Commerce, Secretary of Treasury, Customs and Border Patrol being the actual insurance agent, insurance surety, importer, shall prescribe forms of entries, oaths, bonds. So now we have the Secretary of Treasury shall prescribe what the customs duties bonds are being made of. Who's got the real authority here? Who's doing what? And other papers and rules and regulations not inconsistent with law. Not inconsistent with law. Remember that law I just showed you about entrepot? Where's the customs duty? Who has the duty? Is it me? Nope. I'm the beneficiary. And either way you look at it, even if I'm the seller or the buyer, you're going to be astounded to find out I can use a number in lieu of the name and address just like they can in any commercial surety of the United States, to be used in carrying out the provisions of law relating to raising revenue from imports or to duties on imports. Again, the duty on the import is to the exporter. He's the principal. That's the duty that lies on it. The importer allowed him to use a number in lieu of the name and address to shirk that surety. The same thing with the United States and the state. They allowed the state a transport number, a customs bond, import bond number, to say that they could allow the import to the state of that automobile, and they could use a number in lieu of the name and address. It's a surety number. All those numbers are sureties. Or to warehousing. This is your sheriffs and county jails and municipalities and stuff where they're jailing everybody. And shall give such directions to customs officers. All these people are operating as customs officers. They have access to these numbers. They're entrusted with the use of these numbers along with the names and addresses, and prescribe such rules and forms to be observed by them as may be necessary for the proper execution of law, and not the administration of estates, people. That's why this is rules and forms prescribed by a secretary. They have to execute the law. They can't execute the law because they can only operate by the assumption of the facts presented to them. You have to present the execution by a number in lieu of the name and address. You have that number, and just having that number says you have the right to give it in lieu of. Give unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar. The next one is 19 CFR Part 113, where it tells you about the CPB bonds. This part sets forth the general requirements applicable to bonds. Again, it is the initial importer, the Customs and Border Protection, that is issuing the bonds per form of the Secretary's statements. Not by the execution of actual law. They're all operating under their own assumed authority. It controls the general authority and powers of the Commissioner of CBP. The terms Commissioner or Commissioner of Customs means Commissioner of U.S. Customs and Border Protection. So now you have the Secretary of Treasury, the Commissioner of CBP, and guess what, folks? We're all talking about the tax duties, so we're talking about the Commissioner of the IRS. In requiring bonds. And those bonds are bonds of the United States. They're sureties of the United States. They're instrumentalities of the United States. They're stamps and other, other representatives of value. Taxes are duly paid by stamp. Stamps or other representatives of value. Watch later on, people. Bond approval and execution. Bond conditions, general and special bond requirements. What's a special bond? A special bond would be a sacred bond. That would be the maritime bond. All your general bonds are commercial bonds relative to that financial surety. The requirements which must be met to be either a principal or a surety. Again, I am neither the principal exporter or the surety as importer. I am the beneficiary of the end product. It is private. I use it as I wish. Under my right of entrepot. I don't have to have either the United States, the principal, or the sureties of the United States or the state's involvement. Those are third-party officious intermeddlers. The requirements concerning the production, like I said, the end product of documents, the manufacturer, not any other documents. And it is privy because we made a trade agreement. Independent. I custom made it. And like he gave Customs and Border Patrol a number in lieu of, I gave a number in lieu of that came from the Customs and Border Protection. The authority and manner of assessing liquidated damages and requirements for canceling the bond or charges against a bond. Again, lieu in number, or number in lieu of name and address. The number is the value representative. It goes back to the original financing statement that says it has no landing. It is liquid. Liens for freight, charges, or contribution in general average. Remember those Social Security payments and FICA, those are all contributions, people. You are supporting the lien that they placed through continuous contracting. And when I get done with this video, I'll post all these links in the comments section, so you guys can do your own research. But remember to read this stuff up here at the top. Again, customs duties, Customs and Border Protection, Department of Homeland Security. We are talking about securities, surety bonds, Department of the Treasury, entry or merchandise. Merchant. I'm not the merchant. I'm the end user of the product. Possession and use. Release of merchandise. I'm not releasing it. I'm not leasing it. Okay? Notice something. They said notice of lien. We're going to see this stuff. Notice of lien for freight, charges, or contribution in general average pursuant to Section 564 Tariff Act 1930. Remember, folks, when I was talking about the certification is false on the motor vehicle operator's lease, one of the things we talked about is the ownership of the tax ownership. That was part of that lease agreement. That was notice of the lien. There's supposedly a tax lien on it, because I don't care if you pay this tax with the Federal Reserve note or not. You've never paid the taxes, because like I showed you, the tax is duly paid by stamp. Has anybody paid it by stamp? They sent it through the mail. And those that are wise kept the envelope. Obligations and other securities of the United States. United States stamps and canceled United States stamps. If it's a canceled stamp, it remains an obligation. This is what I'm talking about with this voter fraud. If you've got a mail-in ballot and you separate the envelope that has the canceled stamp on it, keeping it a obligation of the United States, and you get rid of that envelope and only count the ballot, whether it be in its definitive paper form or an electronic form, you've already destroyed the trust instrument. You've already invalidated the ballot. For these mail-in ballots, if it's not, it's just like a promissory note. If it's not kept with the contract, it's separated, it's no longer valid. Same with your ballots, your definitive paper form ballot and the envelope. If it's not kept together, the electronic form ballot's no good, and it also means that the paper form ballot's no good. Pure and simple. It's got to have a clean chain of title. If it doesn't have that clean chain of title, sorry. It's void on its face. It's no longer voidable. It's void on its face. Comprehend that. Pure and simple. It's patent. It's no longer latent. It's patent. It's observable on the face of the record. It's by operation of law. Execution of law. Remember we were talking about the contribution in general average, Social Security contributions, and it talks about general average means the liability to contribution of the owners of a cargo. Contribution, you're the ones making the contribution. It says of the owners, so it's clarifying that you're the owner of the cargo, which arises when a sacrifice of part of such cargo has been made for the preservation of the residue, or when money is extended to preserve the whole. Do you have to extend money to preserve the whole? Can you preserve the whole without the extension of money? It only arises from actions impelled by necessity. They're telling you right there, people. It's inconsistent that their necessity of taxing for import reasons into a private contract trade agreement with myself and an automobile manufacturer in a custom order. They cannot import themselves and their regulations by any necessity. They're telling you this. Now we see this preliminary notice of lien for contribution and general average. Again, that's that driver's license agreement to take on the tax ownership. You did the same thing in the Social Security 5 application. You took on a tax ownership. Merchandise entered for immediate transportation. We're not purchasing merchandise. We're purchasing we're the end user of a product as a beneficiary of use of a surety. An obligation of the United States, whether it be Federal Reserve notes, a check, a loan, anything. Entered for immediate transportation. I'm not entering it for transportation. I'm entering it for private household use and possession. A notice of lien upon merchandise. It's not merchandise. It is my private household family product. Entered for immediate transportation. It is for private use. Shall be filed by the claimant with the port director. Claimant means a carrier, customs broker, or the successor or assigns of either. I am neither the successor or an assign of any carrier or customs broker if I have no knowledge of it. If I give a signature as an authorized representative, however, I must recognize the authorized representation. This is why I tell you, you must recognize this position they're putting you in. They're putting you in as surety, and if you recognize what the surety really is, you can rebut it. I am not the importer. I'm not importing it. I'm making a private agreement, a private exchange, a trade agreement. I don't need your third-person officious intermeddling. I'm not required to pay taxes. If you believe I am required to pay taxes, I believe in your own statutes, codes, rules, and regulations, you require that a name and address be given or a number, and that number can be given in lieu of the name or address which must be given. This is an option, whereas most people give the name, address, and number. It is an option. Limitation on acceptance of notice of lien. A notice of lien shall be rejected and returned with the reason for rejection noted thereon if it is filed after any of the following actions have been taken concerning the merchandise. They're calling it merchandise. And again, who do we claim by? The claimant with the port director, Customs and Border Protection, Department of the Secretary of Treasury, the Commissioner of Customs and Border Patrol, and the IRS Commissioner. That is their tribunal. You're going to come at them with the shadow of the person, which is the number. And they're both a shadow of you. You are the superior tribunal. Where does that name originate? In any form. And in all forms that they use that name, it has to be supported by a number. And no matter what number they use against it, they all go to another number that is directly relative to all of them. Forfeiture under any provision of law. This is one Malika likes to use, although I don't know if she's quite familiar with it. Sale as unclaimed or abandoned merchandise under Section 491 or 559 Tariff Act of 1930, as amended 19 U.S.C. 1491 or 1559. And what happens, folks, is if you go into Walmart and a manufacturer puts a VIN number on something, it will tell you the relative manufacturer date. It will have a birth date. If that birth date is more than 30 days old, it's abandoned property. It has not been imported, exported, or been resold. It has been sitting in one place without any claim. Why? Nobody's taken responsibility to pay the duties on it. Nobody's done their due diligence of the duties. Imagine that. Forfeited or abandoned merchandise, you can read that. Bond may be required. Bond may be required. And what that's saying is it cannot be required. You have to read between the lines, folks. Bond may be required. When any doubt exists to the validity of a lien filed with the port director, he may require a bond on Customs Form 301. Customs Form 301 is Department of Homeland Security. It does have an OMB number, therefore it's another contract, folks. Again, only relevant if you go through here, read this information that they're looking for, and they're looking for the surety number, agent ID number, name and physical address is one. Surety number, agent ID number. Surety number would be the Social Security number. Agent number would be the Social Security number without the dashes. Signature. Big old fat X. Big old fat X. Check box. I checked the box. Then it says check box. Why? I already checked this box. They have a question with that? They better have a good question why I didn't check this box. They can't come forward with a claim and said I have to check that box. Particularly if I'm not supplying this form and I'm doing it in affidavit form, supplying the surety number, the agent ID number, in lieu of the name, address, signature, and whatever else. The surety number is the signature. It is the signature. Satisfaction of a lien. The port director shall not adjudicate any dispute respecting the validity of any lien, but when the amount of such lien depends on the quantity or weight of merchandise actually landed. See, if the import duties have not been paid, it shows that it's being shipped. It's in transportation. In transportation. It has not landed yet. When we get that product, we have to show that it has landed by contacting the port director and giving him a satisfaction of lien, telling him the lien is released. It is no longer, or not released, but it is satisfied. How do we satisfy it? With the number. I've showed you guys that many times, the homemade stamp. That number is used in lieu of, and it is clear and definite as stated, prepaid. The satisfaction of a lien is prepaid. And I give the number in lieu of, showing payment of the claim in full. shall not adjudicate any dispute respecting the validity of any lien, but when the amount of such lien depends upon the quantity or weight of merchandise actually landed, the port director shall hold the lien satisfied. Hold. That means he's got this, he certifies it. He's got to certify it. He's got to qualify it. The lien satisfied upon the payment of an amount computed. Remember we discussed that the other day, computed. Cachet, as in cash, an amount cashed upon the basis of the official customs report of quantity and weight. Look up the word cachet and you'll see it says computing. Cachet is relevant to cash. It's the computation of the value, the amount. Again, that stamp doesn't have a dollar sign on it. It's got 1.00. It is a value. It is an amount. It is a computation. It is cashed as such. Report of quantity and weight. In all other cases, proof that the lien has been satisfied or discharged shall consist of a written, again, here we go, it's not typed, it's not printed, it's not documented, it is written, release or receipt. Remember my brother Derek Gonzalez talked about they give you a receipt. Have you given them a receipt? We have to give them a receipt telling there's a satisfaction of lien, paid in full, signed by the claimant and filed with the port director, showing payment of the claim in full. This is where it's telling us that stuff, people, if you read it. I beg you, I ask you, read this stuff. Again, 19's U.S. Code 1564 specifically defines liens. Customs Duties Tariff Act under the HTSU, which we talked about the other day, Harmonized Tariff Schedule of the United States. It's the Harmonized Tariff Act of the United States. It has nothing to do with the exporter, the automobile industry, or yourself as the end user and possessor. It only has to do with the United States. They are the ones making the claim of a tax duty. Whenever a customs officer shall be notified in writing of the existence of a lien for freight, cargo insurance. Common carrier, a company, an individual, a company, or a public utility. Remember we talked about 19 U.S.C. 81 N and O, wherein they talk about foreign trade zones. This is the Federal Zoning Improvement Plan. It's where they use the name and address of a company or individual. Like municipal buses even. That's why they tell you on municipal buses you have to wear a mask or a shield. That is the regular business of transporting people or freight. And they have to have cargo insurance to do so. People or freight, so long, and must do so as long as the approved charge or fare is paid. No definition for fair. So everything is a charge. Anything charged can be discharged by giving a number in lieu of the name. Simply by giving a written release or receipt. Receipt gives the number. Liens. Charges or contribution in general average upon any imported merchandise. They're calling it imported merchandise. Sent to the appraiser's store for examination. Entered for warehousing or taken possession of by him, he shall refuse to permit delivery thereof from public store or bonded warehouse until proof shall be produced that the said lien has been satisfied or discharged. All you people with brothers and sisters sitting in jail and prison. I've posted a couple things that you can post a number in lieu of the driver's license. This is uniform throughout the states. Look up Minnesota, Michigan, I think Wisconsin, Missouri. They all have the like verbiage of offering a number in lieu, or a driver's license in lieu of bail, driver's license in lieu of bail. That driver's license has a name, address, and phone number. And they need that number specifically. That's why they ask you for your driver's license. They need a name, an address, and phone number. They want to give all that information to give a most complete, accurate record, whereas you, the only living man, can give a number in lieu of the name and address. They can't. They have to have the instrument, and they are qualified, and they must record certain information by those forms. So when a form says they're required to give a first, middle, and last name, and they ask you your first, middle, and last name, they have to give down the first, middle, and last name. If you don't give that first, middle, and last name, and you ask them if you can give that number in lieu of that name and address, they better find out. Because that's what they're doing. That prosecutor, he's handing over a number with a name and address, and it's that number specifically that is attached to a certain box for these insurance bonds. It's called an obligor. We need to think about this stuff, people, and realize that when it comes to acceptance of cash, like I said, cachet, cash deposits, written statements that you deplaced or moved from one place to another, or obligations of the United States in lieu of sureties on bonds. Okay, comprehend this, people. The bond is not the surety. It tells us here that the surety is on the bond. What one's the surety? Is it the name or the number? Think about this very seriously, people. Is the name the surety? Acceptance of cash deposits or obligations of the United States in lieu of sureties on bonds. In lieu of sureties on bond, on any bond required or authorized by law. Any bond required or authorized by law. By law, they can't require a bond. By law, they cannot require a bond, and that's why I showed you earlier They can only say may require a bond. Regulation or instruction which the Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary of the Homeland Security, or the Commissioner of CBP. Okay, there's another tribunal. Remember I told you about the Secretary of Treasury, CBP, and IRS? This is naming another one, Secretary of Homeland Security, as we saw on that form. It's got Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, and it's under the Office of Management and Budget, referring directly to Secretary of Treasury. Okay? This is a commercial transaction that they're going to commit to that is then subject to the Federal Reserve and the IRS and United States. Are authorized to enforce the Director, Revenue Division, or the case of single transaction bonds. A port director may accept United States money, United States bonds, except for savings bonds. You don't even have to worry about paying attention to that. It's in parentheses, doesn't mean anything. United States certificates of indebtedness. The birth certificate and certificate of live birth are certificates of indebtedness. Treasury notes or treasury bills in an amount equal to the face amount of the bond that would be required. The option to deposit cash or U.S. obligations in lieu of sureties is at the option of the importer, and a CBP Form 301 or this other CBP approved bond designating the appropriate activity for the cash deposits. See, we're not going to make a cash deposit. We're going to give them a notice of cash. The cash is your own record. Your record is use and possession, and not sales and distribution. You're not in transportation, traffic, trade, commerce. In lieu of surety must be filed. This is where the number is given. It's a U.S. number. It's given by the state, but the state, under full faith and credit, in contract with the United States under Federal Acquisitions Regulations 48 CFR 52.212-5, contract terms and conditions required to implement statutes or executive orders, commercial items. Remember, we were talking about commerce being the surety. The commercial system is the surety of the United States. The entire commercial system. Every security is an obligation of the United States. Every last one of them. Basic importation and entry bond. It's telling you it's an entry bond. It has to be entered into the United States. They have no way to export anything unless it can be imported first. And then if it's imported and they gave a number in lieu of a name and address of the original importer who is responsible for the duties in the first place, he then shirks his own duty with that entry bond by then exporting it to the states in agreement to pay duties, taxes, and charges by entering them into interstate commerce and released from CBP custody or withdrawn from a CBP bonded warehouse into commerce of or for the consumption in the United States or under 181.53 of this chapter. Collection and waiver or reduction of duty under duty deferral programs. These are your duty deferral programs under foreign trade exemptions, foreign trade zones, NAFTA. This is how NAFTA is. You read this stuff. Bond requirement. We already went over that. Obligation or other security of the United States. Pay attention. Again, you can read all the other stuff you want, but like I said, it says stamps or other representatives of value, folks. Stamps or other representatives of value of whatever denomination issued under any act of Congress and canceled United States stamps. The canceled United States stamps still hold a duty, or still have an obligation. What's the obligation? The obligation is the satisfaction, the recording of a written statement or acknowledgement of a written statement that nobody any longer owes a debt in commerce on that product. It is no longer merchandise up for resale, even if it's a garage sale or you bought a brand new automobile and you don't intend to use it your entire life because you're one of those guys that likes to use it for maybe 5 years and then resell it. Yeah, see, you're going to import it as an exporter. And so they're going to say that you're timely responsible for the duties. You have to acknowledge this aspect, and you're not going to sell it. You're going to grant it. You're going to become a grantee of that private possession that you've used and you've gotten your full use out of, and now you're going to grant it to somebody else. That's your right of entrepot. No duties applied. Duties are only for obligations, and they're taking upon an obligation as an importer and then shirking that obligation by passing it on to everybody else through their false, fake laws, all based on assumptions of legal name. And everybody forgets about the legal number. See, like I said, I'm a man and I have a person as a shadow. That person also has a shadow. That person that I have has a name and a number, and the shadow of the person's name is the person's number. I can use that number in lieu of the name and address just like they can. So think about this stuff, people, and remember, everything's about numbers. And it starts out with a lien notice. Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Under a matter of national importance, they have to protect the person that was born at a municipal hospital at such and such a county, and so therefore they have to export from the county to the state, and then thereby export from the state to the United States in reverse a notice of lien. Marks and numbers of the beast. Again, it's got an OMB number. Port would be the local hospital that you were born at. CBP assigned number, unknown. Date of notice. And again, it's not something that you're going to use this form. You're going to use the information to write up a handwritten statement letting the Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, Secretary of Treasury, notice that you have satisfied the lien, and here are the marks and numbers and the number of packages unknown, all incorporated in prior transactions. Remarks accorded. Profession truth. Just make it real simple. You don't have to make anything long and drawn out. Down here it's going to ask for amounts claimed. One whole. Again, if you saw that stamp, I'm not asking for your money. I want you to comprehend I am whole. I'm not freight. You can't charge me. I don't contribute to your general average. Because your general average, you know what average means? Aver, age. Age of truth. Aver, meaning truth. True age. I don't contribute to your general true age, which is the fictional person and its fictional age, name, and number, which is a bond showing different birth dates. And the total is one whole, 1.00. Statement of agent. I, the undersigned agent of the above named carrier. These are your carriers. That's the above named carrier. Isn't the Department of Homeland Security, aren't they the holder in due course of all these instruments? I mean, they're naming them first and foremost on the top of the page. And wouldn't this be the next carrier? And isn't this a supervising carrier saying that these two carriers are operating in the financial commercial capacity to do so? But yet if we don't give them a commercial number as far as charges, and we only give them a total of one whole, are they going to recognize it? We can change all this wording, and it's not the undersigned agent. It's the beneficiary. Holder of the number in lieu of the name and address. Name and address of lien holder. Number right there. They don't ever ask for the number, but you have the option of giving the number in lieu of the name and address. They tell you so. So think about this stuff, people. Remember, I've discussed Title 19 CFR 149.3, where it talks about the data elements and the ability to use the name or the number in lieu of the name and address. Go back through my posts, watch some of those videos. You'll see those links. And like I said, I'll post all these links in the comments section below, because these are some good ones. And if you have any questions in regards to any of the others, go back and watch some videos. Like I said, all those other links are there if you just watch those videos. In the meantime, I'm going to post my other forum links, and that's going to have that PayPal link. I still hope to see people hitting that share button and share some love. I need it just like everybody else. But in the meantime, remember to share the information, the video, and the forums. It's your duty. I'm not asking for any stamps or money. Though I do appreciate anybody that can, like I said, hit that share button. I have to, a doctrine of necessity, use them just like everybody else. So in the meantime, remember, if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be doing this. God bless you. I love you. And have a great night. In lieu of their medicine.